Have you ever loved someone so deeply you gave everything, even when you had nothing left to give? Would you believe that the boy everyone called a burden would one day return not just to thank her but to change her life forever? This is the emotional and unforgettable story of a mother's heart and the boy who repaid her love in the most unexpected way. It was a cold, rainy night when Mama Rose first saw him, a tiny, shivering figure curled beneath an empty market stall, soaked to the bone and silent as if he had long forgotten how to cry. His clothes were torn, his body thin, and his eyes hollow with hunger and fear. She had no reason to stop, no obligation. She was barely surviving herself, a widow grieving the loss of her husband and only child in a fire that took everything from her. But something about the boy stirred her heart like a whisper from the past. Without hesitation, she pulled off her shawl, wrapped it around him, and led him home through the rain. Her house was small, made of old wood and patched walls, but it was warm. That night, she gave him food, clean water, and a place to sleep, not because she could afford to, but because she remembered what it felt like to be alone in the dark. The town didn't understand her kindness. People whispered behind her back, "Why is she keeping that street trash?" Others warned her, "He'll steal from you, Rose." But she ignored them all. She named him Ethan. From that night on, Mama Rose became his world. She shared her meals even when her own stomach growled. She washed his clothes by hand, taught him to read, and tucked him into bed every night with stories of courage and hope. She believed in him before he believed in himself. Years passed, and Ethan grew into a bright, kind-hearted young man. He was grateful beyond words, always helping Mama Rose with chores, fetching water, fixing broken windows, and studying hard to make her proud. She worked tirelessly to send him to school, often skipping meals so he wouldn't miss a day of learning. And then came the day Ethan graduated at the top of his class. The ceremony was simple, but Mama Rose wept with joy, her heart swelling with pride. But just weeks later, Ethan vanished without a trace. All he left behind was a single note on the kitchen table, "I'll return, Mama, bigger than you ever dreamed." Heartbroken but hopeful, Mama Rose held on to those words like a promise carved into stone. She waited and waited. 7 long years passed. Time had been cruel to Mama Rose. Her once strong hands now trembled with age, her back ached from years of hard labor, and the house she once kept so proudly now leaned like it, too, was tired of standing. She still lived in that same wooden home, its paint long faded, its roof patched with whatever she could find. Each morning, she woke up hoping for news, a letter, a voice, anything. But there was nothing. Just silence. Neighbors came less often now. The world seemed to forget about her, moving forward without a second glance. Still, every evening, she lit a small lamp by the window, just in case Ethan would return one day. She never stopped believing. Then one afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in golds and reds, a sound broke through the quiet, a deep, smooth purr of an engine unlike anything ever heard around these parts. A sleek black Ferrari rolled up to her gate, shiny enough to reflect the sky itself. It came to a stop, and from it stepped a man in a tailored suit, his shoes clicking softly against the dirt road. He looked around slowly, eyes scanning the broken fence, the worn-out porch, and finally landing on the old woman standing at the door. Her heart pounded. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. He walked toward her, slow and deliberate, as if trying not to scare her. As he got closer, she saw his face clearly, older, sharper, but unmistakably him. "Ethan," she whispered, barely audible. He dropped to his knees right there on the ground, tears streaming down his face. "I'm home, Mama," he said, voice trembling. "I kept my promise." Mama Rose stood frozen, overwhelmed. Was this real, or had loneliness finally played tricks on her mind? Ethan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in velvet. He held it out to her with both hands. It was a set of keys. Behind them, the car doors opened, revealing a brand new house, her name engraved on the mailbox. And that was only the beginning. Ethan stood up slowly, never taking his eyes off Mama Rose. He reached for her hands, those same hands that had bathed him when he was sick, fed him when he was hungry, and held him when the world felt too cruel. He kissed them gently, tears still flowing freely. "I owe you everything," he said. "You gave me a life when I had none. You loved me when no one else would." Then he pulled out another item from his coat, a small black box. Inside were documents bearing her name, bank accounts, property deeds, and shares in a thriving business, all in Mama Rose's name. "I built it all for you," Ethan whispered. "Not just to give you comfort, but to show the world who made me who I am. You are my mother, not by blood, but by love. And I will never let anyone forget that." Mama Rose could barely speak. Her heart was full, overflowing with emotions she couldn't name. She reached forward and wrapped her arms around him the way she had done so many years ago when he was just a cold, shivering boy under a market stall. And this time, she didn't let go. Ethan had become a global tech CEO, rising through the ranks of innovation and leadership. He started his own company from scratch, building apps that connected millions and changed how people lived. His journey wasn't easy, there were failures, lonely nights, and moments he almost gave up. But every time he thought of Mama Rose, he found strength. It was her voice he heard in his head when he signed his first big deal. It was her face he saw when he stepped onto international stages. And it was her love that kept him grounded through it all. Now, standing before her in the flesh, he was not just returning as a successful man, he was returning as her son, forever grateful for the woman who gave him a second chance at life. Lessons from this story. A helping hand can lift someone higher than you imagine. Ethan started life as a homeless child with nothing, but one person's compassion gave him a chance, a home, an education, and hope. That single opportunity allowed him to rise not just out of poverty but all the way to becoming a global tech CEO. Mama Rose didn't just feed him, she believed in him. Never underestimate the power of lifting someone up when they're down, your support might be the very thing that helps them change their destiny. Love without expectation can change lives. Mama Rose gave everything she had, her time, her heart, and even her last meal, to a boy who was not hers by blood. She loved Ethan without asking for anything in return. And though many doubted her kindness, that same love became the foundation of his success. Her selfless love taught him how to be good, how to dream, and how to never give up. True love is not about what you get, but what you give. Sometimes, the greatest impact we make is through simple acts of kindness with no expectation of reward. Gratitude is the greatest form of honor. After years of silence, Ethan returned not just to say thank you but to repay everything Mama Rose had done for him. He didn't forget where he came from or who made it possible. He honored her publicly, financially, and emotionally, proving that gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's an action. Real gratitude means remembering those who stood by you when no one else would and giving back. Not just when you can, but when you finally have the power to. As the days turned into weeks, Mama Rose's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The small, creaking house she had called home for decades was now replaced by a warm, spacious cottage, built just for her, with wide windows that let in the morning sun and a garden filled with her favorite flowers. Ethan had thought of everything, even hiring a kind neighbor, Mrs. Clara, to check in on her daily and help with errands. But more than the material comforts, it was Ethan's presence that healed her heart. He visited often, sometimes bringing along his business partners or colleagues, proudly introducing her as, "the woman who saved my life." At first, Mama Rose would wave him off, embarrassed by the attention, but Ethan refused to let her humility hide her greatness. One evening, as they sat on the porch sipping tea, Ethan turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Mama, I've been thinking, what if we could help others the way you helped me?" Mama Rose tilted her head. "What do you mean, my boy?" "I want to start a foundation in your name, one that helps homeless children find homes, education, and hope. Just like you gave me." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Oh, Ethan, that's beautiful. But are you sure?" He took her hand. "I've never been more sure of anything. You taught me that love isn't just something we feel, it's something we do. And now, I want to do it for others." The Rose Foundation, a beacon of hope. Within a year, the Rose Foundation was born. The first center opened in their old town, a bright, welcoming building where children who had nowhere else to go could find food, shelter, and schooling. Mama Rose, though hesitant at first, became the heart of the project. She would sit with the children, telling them stories, holding their hands when they were scared, just as she had done for Ethan. News of the foundation spread, and soon, donations poured in from people moved by Mama Rose and Ethan's story. Celebrities, business leaders, and even government officials took notice, offering support to expand the foundation's reach. But the most touching moment came when a little girl named Lila, no older than Ethan had been when Mama Rose found him, tugged at her sleeve one day. "Mama Rose," she whispered, "when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Mama Rose pulled her into a tight hug, her heart swelling. "Oh, my dear, you already are." Years passed, and the foundation grew, but Ethan never let his success pull him away from what truly mattered. No matter how busy he became, he made time for Mama Rose, Sunday dinners, holidays, even just quiet evenings watching the sunset together. On her 80th birthday, Ethan threw a grand celebration, inviting everyone whose lives Mama Rose had touched. Former street children, now doctors, teachers, and artists, stood up one by one to share how her kindness had changed their lives. As the night wound down, Ethan stood before the crowd, his voice thick with emotion. "They say success is measured by what we achieve, but I've learned it's really measured by who we lift up along the way. Mama Rose, you lifted me when I was broken. And now, look at how many lives you've lifted since." He turned to her, eyes shining. "You are my hero. And you always will be." Mama Rose, now frail but still radiant, smiled through her tears. "And you, my son, are my greatest joy." The lesson that lives on. The story of Mama Rose and Ethan became more than just a tale of one woman's kindness, it became a movement. Schools taught it as an example of compassion, churches shared it in sermons, and parents told it to their children as a bedtime story. But the most beautiful part? It never truly ended. Because love, once given, never stops growing. And somewhere out there, another child is waiting, for someone like Mama Rose. This story reminds us that our actions matter more than we know. One act of love today could inspire a miracle tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, and share to spread the message of love and gratitude. And if you want more powerful, emotional, and inspiring stories like this, subscribe so you never miss a new story, because sometimes, the most unforgettable tales come from the most unexpected places. Thank you for reading. Stay blessed until next time.